What's up, y'all? Today we got another friend of mine that I've known for, I guess, has it been almost a decade now? You've been a Cincy for almost a decade now?
In a month, it'll be a decade. Yep.
Okay. And we're fraternally related. And I think you can tell what organization we're a part of. It's very, very clear and evident. And so, with that being said, I'm very happy to have him here. I know he's been in an industry that when I was young in my profession and in my career, I was very, very jealous of. I thought his company was so freaking cool. I still do. The type of research and information that they have, I think that it's not only valuable, but it's powerful to know that there's people out there that have access to so much information that they can predict behavior to some degree and intentionally do that through the information that's being provided. And what if you knew what these positions were and you were interested in it? That means you could potentially get it. And that's, what we're doing here. We're making sure that people know what that anything is, because anything means nothing. If they say that you can grow up to be anything, they told you nothing. So here's where we give you the answer to what anything is and fill in that blank, which is today. As you know, I don't tell you the title, tell you what the job title is at the beginning of the interview. We make sure that that comes gradually a little bit later at the beginning of the interview. So, with that being said, the first question we have to ask, because people are waking up with parents, family, themselves who hate their job. Let's get this whole thing clear. Do you hate your job? Do you like your job? Or do you
I,
love it?
I like my job. I'm in a really good spot. I interesting work, good pay, good work life balance. Yeah, I have a. I wouldn't be at the same general spot for a decade if I didn't like it. So,
Whew, you've been at your one company for a decade.
well, the company has. It's weird. The company itself has changed. Has changed over the years. I started with one company that was a joint venture. One half of the joint venture bought out the other half, created another company. So I've been with the same people for a decade. But if you look at my resume, it looks like I worked in 3 different places. But I've actually been with the same general people for a decade. So
Okay, I'm glad you cleared that up, because of course I went to your LinkedIn, I looked at your resume and seen that, and I also remember the previous name of the company that you work for. And so I'm like, all right, when you said that, it kind of threw me off, because I'm like, I know for a fact that he's been apparently with another company, but I was also a little bit confused because you've been in the same building the whole time, correct?
different buildings. So when the joint venture, when the one half of the joint venture bought out the other half, we were in the middle of moving to a new building anyway. So we moved down closer to the interstate to like closer to Fountain Square. That's when that's when it became a new company. But it's basically the same people, same general type of stuff. We have a little bit different business model now than what we had at the other company, but it's generally the same thing.
Okay. I usually like to ask this question at the end, but I want to get it out the way now, which is, what was the first profession that you remember having as a child, or at whatever point? What's the first profession you ever desired to have?
Probably, I mean, everybody want to play ball, right? You know what I'm saying? As you growing up, everybody wants to play ball. I think though, I'm a vertically challenged, so I probably wasn't going to be doing a lot of playing ball. I was fast, but I knew that it was. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to be a lawyer slash, maybe a politician or something like that later on. I think I wanted to be a lawyer. That was the first thing that I really kind of set my sights on.
Huh. If I'm honest, I can see you as a politician. I could definitely see that. It's funny because, well, that ain't funny. With everything going in our city and the things happening with our politicians, I've definitely, in the oddest of ways, have been thrown off, because everybody keeps hitting me up like, "Hey, you should know." I'm not. No. I I don't want to live a life of a, a reality show. I didn't choose that. I much rather work behind the scenes and make other people be great. I don't desire to be pushed out front unless someday I decide to. But at this moment, it's not me.
Yeah.
So what made you shift from that level of thought, like from going want to be an attorney or a politician, to this industry that you've been in since you graduated?
You know, as the kids say, I'm gonna keep it 100. You know what I'm saying? I started off as a political science major in college, right? So my first semester in college, I was a political science major. First class I ever went to in college was a poli-sci class. Did good in it. I went to a performing arts high school, but I was in a non-performing arts magnet. So we had different concentrations. I was actually in the law magnet in high school. I did Model United Nations in high school. I was on a debate team in high school. So, that was kind of the path, right? But to be honest, I went to school on my dad's GI Bill. So that means I got free tuition and books for 4 years. And that was something that was always ingrained in my head. You need to pick a school in Alabama because it only works in the state that you were in. And you got 4 years. And after the 4 years, you're going to start paying. So after my first semester, I was like, you know what? I need to get into something that is going to make me money a little bit closer after my bachelor's degree than having it be elongated. And to be honest, I saw, I went to the University of Alabama and walking around campus, I saw these flyers about, hey, this program has 100% job placement rate. And that was the thing that really stuck out to me. I was like, well, they're giving out jobs in this major. Let me change my major. And second semester, I joined the greatest fraternity in the world, and I changed my major at the same time to be a management information systems major. And then it really just, kind of went from there. I did all the classes. I did, all the stuff. The school had a good relationship with a lot of different companies. And so that's how I ended up in Cincinnati and just kind of went from there.
That is very, very interesting. So that makes me, I'm just curious to know the psyche in the process of like, because I'm assuming that you didn't just choose it because of money. You could have, I don't know. But to hear that you heard that there was success rate over here and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go with that. And I mean, I feel it because like you mentioned, playing ball, I played basketball my entire life. And then I ran track when I was in 7th grade until college, which obviously I went there for, and also was getting recruited for football. And I was trying to make the basketball team in college. And then when junior year of high school hit, I was like, yeah, you're a power forward at 5'11". This probably ain't the move to make. And I recognize, like you're saying, that the real opportunity for success and to get money to go to college, D1, was to switch those and focus on those two sports. Obviously, I had an intent behind that, and it sounds like you have one. So I'm just curious to know what can make a person switch from such a, I mean, we're not going to act like poli-sci or whatnot wasn't a profession that was going to not pay well. Like that was going to pay very well.
Yeah, I think to me, it was more, I know a lot of poli-sci majors, but that was more of a long game, like, what are you going to do with, no offense to any of my poli-sci arts and sciences majors, right? But you're not really going to be able to do a lot with just a poli-sci degree, keeping it all the way 100. You're going to need to go get your master's. You're going to need to go to law school. You're going to need to do something else. With MIS and Management Information Systems at the University of Alabama, which is a top 10 or top 5 ranked MIS program in the country, it was like, 4 years and the off-ramp is a decent job in a decent location. So it was more of a tactical decision that as I got into it, I liked, it was a team atmosphere in Management Information Systems, a lot of social people. So that kind of, I culturally fit in with the other people in the group in the major. And so I was like, hey, I'm just going to run with this. Hey, I get to kind of mix soft skills and hard skills and it seemed like a good spot to me. But to be honest, it was a very tactical. I mean, I was 2007. This is 2007 we're talking about. Pre-iPhone, pre, social media on your phone, all this other stuff. So it was a very tactical decision. But once I got into it, and it's not like I, had immediate success because I went from being an arts and sciences major to a business major. Because in management information systems, even though it deals with technology and it's fundamentally a business major. So that means finance, economics, all those stuff, which I didn't do the best in, right? But I made my way through it. And then what really kind of, once I got into my major classes, it was like, all right, this is a good spot that I can have leadership, which translated well from being in the fraternity, being in other groups. That translated very well into management information systems because it was always a team atmosphere. So.
It's interesting. I mean, so we're of course going to dig deeper into how you got your actual current position, but since you mentioned it, I want you to expand because many people think about going to college and are so focused on going in there and graduating with good grades and completely miss the fact that it's not simply about school and grades when you're in college. People, I think I talked about this in a different interview. People in those political families, just like the royal families back in the day, are going there to build relationships to to take their family to a different place. So talk a little bit about, because obviously you're a part of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, the greatest fraternity, the greatest fraternity magnitude in the world. You know what I'm saying? And with that being said, you're also a part of other organizations, which you mentioned. So if you don't mind, talk about some of those organizations outside of Sigma, and that you had while you were in college. And I know you're a part of another one. I don't know if you joined that while you were in college as well.
Yeah, nah, I mean, we were talking about the one safe public discourse, but now I was in the Alabama Information Management Society, and so that was a good, that was a really good organization we had on campus, where they basically hosted different companies coming in every Tuesday, and we had FaceTime with different companies every Tuesday, 6:30, which is funny. I was saying I don't really dress up a lot at work, but when I was in school, I was wearing a suit 3 times a week, like, at a minimum, sometimes more than that, with the different, interview preps and recruiters coming in. So the Alabama Information Management Society was definitely one of them. Trying to see, and that was the only kind of like professional. I was in some other kind of like, social clubs outside of Phi Beta Sigma. That was good too. For those out there that know about the Turtle Club, that was a big, part of my collegiate experience. So Google that if you don't know about it. That was something that was a big, that was just a party machine. You know what I'm saying? Think about this is 2006, 7, 8, pre-social media, pre all this other stuff. So getting in different little social colloquial groups like that was a good way to meet other folks. Now after college, I've joined. I'm a Prince Hall Mason here in Ohio, so that's definitely something just from getting more ingrained into the city and getting, and just having different connections. That was something good. I was a part of the Urban League had the leadership development class, so I was a member of the Urban Leaders Institute, which was formerly known as the African American Leadership Development Program, but I was in class 26, 2018-19 class, and that helped out tremendously in terms of just networking with different people and doing things like that. But yeah, those were the the key things, organizations. I mean, I'm a very social person, so I'm kind of a natural networker. So I did a lot of things just off of my own, getting to know people and meeting people. But yeah, I think those were the key things that I think helped me out. But it's, in school in particular, I think it's very important to get into some. Greek life is important. Don't get me wrong. It's a blue and white household, as you can see behind me. But other organizations are very important in terms of just building out your brand and knowing more about what's going on. So I've interacted with a lot of people in NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. Interacted with a lot of people in NAACP. I've interacted with a lot of people in a lot of different. When I was in school at Alabama, I worked for the student union in the Department of Student Affairs, where I was kind of putting on programs and managing things and booking acts and getting contracts, doing technical, artist riders and all that other stuff. So that helped out as well with just getting to know different people. But I think it's important to and now that I'm recruiting people in college, we look for those type of things. You know what I'm saying? We look for how you're gonna interact on the team, initiative, things like that. So it's very important.
Okay, so I know we drug it out a little bit longer than usual. So go ahead and tell them what your actual job is and what does it actually mean? What does the title mean?
Well, I'm a director of data engineering at 8451. So 8451 is a uh, customer science data experience company. And so yeah, that's where I work. And it's a wholly owned subsidiary of Kroger. So we do a lot of data analytics and things for Kroger, a lot of products. We sell insights and things to a lot of brands, a lot of more noticeable brands that you are more familiar with, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nestle, all of the people that sell stuff in the grocery store. So I'm a director of data engineering, which means that I have a couple of different teams that I'm directing and different leads on those teams. And we basically are managing all of the data pipelines into different applications. So if you think about it, right, a good analogy is water, right? Think about it like water. How does the water get to your house? You go into your house, you turn on the spigot, the water comes out. But obviously the water has to come through pipes to get to your house. It has to be cleansed to get to your house. It has to be treated to get to your house. It may have to kind of divert into different subdivisions and things like that. So we do the same thing with data. Data comes to the applications. It has to be transformed, cleansed, manipulated. And so, as you know, data is the new currency. A lot of people say data is the new oil. And so it's becoming increasingly more important and a bigger part of these Fortune 20, Fortune 500, but, Fortune 20 and up companies are building their whole strategies around data. And instead of just going on gut and instinct, they're looking for actual data to back up things. So, that's a good kind of analogy. Think about it as how the water gets to your house. The house is the application, the water is the data, and I'm the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. So that's a good way to kind of think about it at a high level. So.
Yeah, so we're in a world where everyone's talking about data. And I really would love for you, since you actually said the name of your company, I would really love for you to share with people what that actually means. Like make it actually something that they can visibly see just through your wording. And I love the fact that what your company does is just so freaking cool. And I want you to articulate that to people, because I think that just like a younger adult version of myself after graduating college, I really was jealous of that job. And I was also jealous of the fact that there's somebody out there that's qualified for it, yet I wasn't. And that's the only reason I was jealous, was because I was currently at that moment after graduating college not qualified. And had I known in advance, there was a high chance I probably would have tried to take on whatever degrees would have allowed me to get the information that would have qualified me for your current company. So if you can, please elaborate on what exactly 8451 is and what it actually does. What is that data?
Yeah. So, if you go into a grocery store, and in particular like Kroger, right? They've got the Kroger card, right? So every time you go in a store, you swipe your card. You notice everybody's got a card nowadays. Everybody's got a rewards club, a VIP club, whatever, right? All of that is about data collection. That's the whole purpose of all of that, is to be able to tie your purchasing behavior back to you. And in that way, we're able to make informed decisions based off of the data, and make better decisions based off of the data that are best for the company and best for the customer as well. So for example, if we see that, you don't ever buy any meat, why are we sending you a coupon for steaks? Or if we see that you've never bought pet food, why would we send you a coupon for dog food or a dog bowl? We do things like create different segmentations where we may know that, okay, you're really sensitive to the price in this department of the store, but you splurge over here, you don't really care, right? It's whatever. And so we're going to treat people different based off of their behavior, right? So if we have a price decrease in a certain part of the store, we're probably going to publicize that to you a little bit more if we know that you're sensitive to that price. To, you know, a lot of times price is just about perception. So those are some of the business decisions. Whereas in another part of the store where you just, hey, you know, let's say cheese, you want the finest cheese there is. You know, if we have new cheese coming in, we'll probably may try to upsell you or let you know about different things that are coming in. Different things like, do you have kids in the household? How many kids? Decisions around how to lay out the store. That's a big one, right? So, for example, some people just look at, you look at a bunch of products and how do you make the decision about what goes on the shelves? So some people may just look at sales, right? And say, all right, just whatever one got the lowest sales, that goes off the shelf, right? Just rank them, top 20 products, that's the shelf. But I think the data science component finds out that you got certain items in the stores that even though their sales aren't high, we're actually looking at what we call like basket penetration of those different items. So one of the main examples we always use is like kosher butter or something like that. Let's say there's a kosher butter, right? A special type of sausage or a special type of sausage that's really unique. It may have low sales, but people always get that particular brand or that particular type of item, sausage or salt or whatever you want to call it. And if you take that item off the shelves, you lose everything else in their grocery basket. Right. And so it's not just about the sales, it's more about the whole impact to the customer. And we take data science techniques to look at that. You got something?
Yeah. So you got all of this information based off of purchasing habits. Like you can even figure out to some degree whether or not they have kids. You mentioned at one point how many kids, which that just sounds extremely difficult for me to understand how my purchasing habits can tell you. Potentially, I'm going to say potentially. I don't know if it is potentially or if it actually the actual number. How does my purchasing habit tell you this information?
Well, it's a lot of times it's an educated guess. I think it's a mixture of an educated guess. We also link with third-party providers that give us some of this data. We do a different technique where, like, say, you may have willingly given the data to somebody else, all anonymized in order to protect people's privacy or whatever. So it's not like how you actually tie back, this Irvin doing this, that's close to locked down. But in general, we know ID 54689, probably there's a high possibility they have more than one kid, right? We can look at the different types of things that they're buying, and there's different models and things that can predict, how many kids you got, or you just got a kid, or yada, yada. So, there's a lot of information out there about people. I mean, it's, what type of neighborhood you live in, the propensity of the neighborhood you live in to be a certain demographic. There's key things to be able to tell if somebody's from a different demographic based off of just what they purchase. So there's a lot of, sometimes it's just a degree of, it's an estimate. Sometimes it is just an estimate. Other times we're linking it up with third-party data.
Mm-hmm. So. Man, that is so freaking cool. I am curious to know, because I remember at one point hearing and learning that I know there's even a science to product placement. How much of that is actually involved in your job? Are you all like being consulted for product placement? And for those people who are kind of curious about what I'm talking about, a perfect example, please correct me if I'm wrong. I remember hearing that some grocery stores are intentional about recognizing that if you have little kids and you're taking your little kids to the store, we're going to place certain things at the eye level that are going to grab the attention of the kids. That way the kids can kind of be a marketer for us as well and sell this item for us because they want the item. We know that the average human is probably this height. The average man is usually this height. So we're going to put the men's deodorant on this level and the women's deodorant on this level, and the popular ones pay to be at the average height level. Am I in the area? Okay, so do you all do this? And this is why I just think it's so freaking cool, because to know so much about a person and to make life easier in a world where we're in a microwave society and people want you to do that anyways.
So plug, that is 8451's motto, making people's lives easier. So I'm glad you said that, because that's a direct tie to what we do, making people's lives. But yeah, we do product placement stuff for sure. It's more recommendations, right? And so yeah, but we help, we give insights on the best ways to set up product. One thing you said about cereal, which is interesting, right? Next time you go in the grocery store, look at this. All of the kids' cereals. Look at all the mascots on the kids' cereals. Look at which way their eyes are pointing. Next time you go into a grocery store, just look at which way you can Google them, right? You can Google it and look at where Toucan Sam's eyes are looking. Look at where other mascots or whatever. Look at where their eyes are looking. There's a reason for that, right? You're absolutely right. It's a difference between the person who's initiating the purchase and the person who's actually putting the money out their pocket to do it. And so they always try to go towards whoever's initiating the purchase to get to that. But all those things, I mean, I've seen stuff. I haven't seen some of this stuff in a while, but I mean, there's heat maps in the store to see traffic patterns. There's there's even like visual, like when you walk up to a shelf, where do your eyes go first? There's even science around all of that. So there's definitely science in all of the components. And they're trying to integrate basically science into every business decision where there's a component of science to it. So anything where you can make a decision about something, in the business should have a science component to it.
Man, this thing is so intriguing to me. So is your industry currently doing something to actually address the fact that young Mario didn't know that this job was out there and available for him to get? Like, are you all selling and letting people know? And what are those initiatives that you all are taking?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. We are definitely taking some steps to, one, we need more diversity in our industry, and at 8451, I don't care who hears that, right? Because I'm really a part of the diversity and inclusion equity team at 8451. We're like, I'm at the hip with them. I actually had another Zoom call with them earlier today talking about some stuff. But some of the things, you're absolutely right. It's not that people are smarter than other people. It's just that some people have been exposed to things and other people have not. And to that point, we're looking in different places to get our candidates. We're working with different groups that kind of curate diverse, Black and brown, women, all marginalized groups. We're being intentional about getting pipelines from there. We're also, and in that, starting a relationship with HBCUs. Shout out to FAMU. We're making inroads and relationships that way. And we're just being intentional about it. I think the first thing with that type of letting more people know about it, and especially, there's a lot of people that know about it. A lot more of us knowing about it is just being intentional about where we advertise, who we're partnering with, and that's a fairly recent journey, I would say, in the last 2 years or so. But it's definitely on everybody's radar. And we're being more intentional about who we reach out to, where we recruit, how we recruit. That's a big thing, talking about implicit bias and unconscious biases. So we're working through all of that right now. But that definitely is a problem in a lot of these kind of niche industries that provide good paying, career building jobs. You can support a family, you can have a good life. But a lot of people just don't know about it, right? And if I wasn't in the program that I was in at the University of Alabama, I would not have known about this at all. Like, just, it was in a whole, way up north, me in Alabama, Cincinnati is Canada, you know what I'm saying? So it was way away from, so I wouldn't have known about it. So the fact that I got exposed to it, we're trying to do that in different places to kind of increase the diversity, so.
Okay, so I know very well how many people are living in a situation where their coupons matter. Being able to receive coupons that are valuable to the purchases that they make help them to go. I mean, especially we're in COVID right now. People need every dollar. So if I'm going to get some type of coupon, I need to be something that I'm always going to be able to use, and it's going to be able to actually help my life get easier. I'm bringing these things up because we also live in a world where people talk about the information sharing and pretty much some of the stuff you're talking about, and they kind of villainize it. But at the same time, we're talking about a situation where we're making lives easier by you studying my purchasing habits. At Kroger, since you mentioned it, they actually kick out coupons that are reflective of me. I don't currently have kids. Now, at some point, I'm praying that God blesses me. But at this current moment, I don't have kids, so I don't need Pampers to be showing up as a coupon or whatever else showing up as a coupon in my purchasing habits. So I think that it definitely makes life easier, is helpful and beneficial. So can you speak to some of the concerns? And I only want to bring up that concern because I want anybody, especially younger generation there that may be watching documentaries or whatnot, to understand the positives as well as a response to maybe some of the perspectives that are out there due to, Instagram, Facebook, and how those things work, and Google being connected to everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's funny, like it's getting to the masses, but because I've been in the industry so long, these are things we've been talking about for 7-8 years now, right? In terms of how to be responsible with people's data, to be transparent about how you're using people's data. That is a big, I think that's a big thing to look at with any company. There's gonna be a lot more data companies popping up over the next couple of years. So I think that you should always look at the integrity of these companies. You should always look at what they're trying to do with the data. One of the things that we do, there's a lot there's the legal landscape is changing when it comes to privacy, right? And so a lot of concerns and things are really going to just be, I'm not gonna say going to be legislated away, but there's going to be a different dynamic in how people have access and control over their data and what they want to share and be sold and what they don't. For example, California has the CCCPA. Have you heard of that? CCPA?
No, can you tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, it's called the California Consumer Protection Act. And what it is basically like a consumer's data bill of rights. You have the right to know what companies know about you. You have the right to tell them to delete everything about you. You have the right, I think, to tell them, I may be wrong on this third one, but I think you have the right to tell them not to sell it to somebody else. So if you think about that, those are three simple things, but think about that in the context of the world today. Facebook, Google, everybody else, right? So right now, that's only in California. So it's a California state law, but the company I work with has a big footprint in California. So some of these concerns are the legislative landscape is going to be different. And so, but I think, you should just do your due diligence about the companies, right? And just ask them, what are your guiding principles? One of the things I like about 8451 and Kroger in general is there's an opt-in mentality. There's an opt-in strategy as opposed to an opt-out strategy. So what does that mean? That means that you start doing stuff with Kroger, we're not going to just automatically start tracking. You have to give consent. Some places you have to tell them, don't track me. Whereas 8451 and Kroger, you have to say, please track me. So that's just a different dynamic, and so just ask those questions and hopefully people give you transparent answers. But it is a concern for sure. But I think I'm proud of the way the company operates and maintains people's privacy. And these are the type of discussions that we have. So for example, you can go a little bit too far with it, right? So one of the things I heard, right when I first got into the industry, I think it was Target. I think it was somebody at Target, where you talked about predictive stuff, right? Their predictive analytics and all that stuff was really, really good. And they got to a point to where there was it was like a teenage girl in a household. And based off of what she was buying, they figured out she was pregnant. And so they started sending pregnancy stuff to her.
I remember this. Yep.
Her parents didn't know that she was pregnant. And so you know, those type of things, there's added layers of sensitivity around, they call them sensitive commodity departments of commodities, where there's an extra kind of layer of concern and cares, like, okay, just because we can do it, should we do it? And is it the right thing? But that's just an example of like how it can kind of go too far and ways to kind of avoid it. But it's definitely a topic that will continue to grow into the 2020s for sure.
Definitely, definitely. That makes sense. And I mean, that's so interesting. I mean, that's actually a commercial. Not thinking about it, but it's a commercial, not in the way of like I purchased this particular item in real life. That's that commercial where the person is like, I'm pregnant. They're on the bus and they're riding, and I guess their data is being shared and on their internet or whatnot, and it's being read. And like that's very interesting that you brought that up because that commercial is going on right now. But tell me a little bit about the myths, I guess, related to this job that you have, your profession, your industry,
Um,
if there are any. If there are any.
you know, I don't know if there's any. You know that there's some. I think you know what the myth is. This is the myth that is so extremely difficult that you can't do it. That is the myth. That is the myth. You can do it. This is not rocket science that we got going on. I think it's a matter of who's exposed to what, who has the opportunity to do what. The biggest myth is that you can't do it. You can get into this industry. You can do it. And I think, you know, talking to different people in the industry, doing things like this, getting people's paths to it, I think will debunk a lot of that stuff, because I think we see this stuff and we think these industries aren't for us. They are for us. We can do this stuff. And I think that's the biggest myth. I think for our community that we can't do this type of stuff. Yes, we can. The thing I've realized is I've climbed the corporate ladder a little bit. You know, you get into these rooms, right, where some of these decisions are being made. And the whole time, when you're outside of the room, you're like, oh man, those people in the room, they're so smart, man. How are they doing this type of stuff? They got it all figured out and yada yada. Then you get in the room and you sit at the table and you realize a couple different things. One, sometimes these people aren't all that smart. I think Michelle Obama said something very similar, right? You start getting into the room with all these powerful decision makers. You realize, you know what? Sometimes they're not that smart. They just have had more opportunity. And then kind of the other thing is that you have a lot of value to add into those decision-making rooms, into these type of industries. Think about it. If we're talking about relating to the customer and doing all that stuff, if you don't have the cultural competency to add context, because data is one thing. You can only do so much with data. You have to have cultural context to put the data into the right framework. And sometimes these rooms, everybody looks alike and there is no cultural competency. And so opportunities get missed. So I think the biggest myth is that you can't get into this industry and that you don't have anything valuable to add. And I think those are the biggest myths all around. So
Come on, man. You got to bring that, man. I appreciate that because it's like, I know Dennis Kimbrough, he says in his book, what thou seest, that thou beest. And many times because people don't see things, they don't necessarily realize that, I mean, if you want it, you can have it. You just have to figure out the hows in between. But if you have it already in your brain that we can make this thing happen, then all of a sudden you go from having to talk to somebody on a phone with a cord connected to a wall to talking to a family member in Europe or India face to face via screen. I mean, it depends on what you decide to make real and to not just buy into the idea of impossible, because if something was impossible or if all laws were true like gravity, then planes wouldn't be in the sky until you understand how to defy it in the way that it temporarily does so. I think that what you're saying is so important, especially having a person like you in the positions that you're in and being able to point out the fact that in those rooms, diversity matters. Why? Because frankly, regardless of, and I hate the majority minority terminology, but frankly, at the end of the day, we're talking about percentages when it comes to the races in this country. We have blacks, we have actual people of, we have Indians of India. We have actual different people of Asian descent. I know Indians are Asian descent, so I apologize if that caught somebody off guard. But we have so many different groups of people, including Europeans and whatnot. And for that reason, you have to have people who have an understanding of cultures so you don't accidentally offend somebody. Because I know that, the thumbs up sign here just means good job, while in other cultures, it's a very derogatory term. And to know that allows you to adjust and to know and make content and products that are going to cross over well, opposed to offend a person that you would want to have your item. So I think that the information that you all are developing helps those companies do that, but they also need to have more people in those rooms that are diverse. And that diversity needs to look like different colors in a room as well as different genders. That way, intentionally, you can be creating products that are connecting directly with the person and the people that you want, opposed to having all these errors in judgment and then having to recall these items, which frankly, I don't believe anybody is that dumb, in my opinion. I think that people in those corporate companies are very brilliant in their marketing, and they were perceiving this as a great marketing ploy. But you can disagree, you don't have to disagree. But I see some of those things. I'm like, I see what you did there. People are going to talk about this. It's going to be everywhere, and then they're going to come back to you after they're upset for a week. And you just simply made people know your name even more. Unfortunately, it was bad press, but I heard from somewhere that all press is good press, which I don't know if I agree.
The biggest thing, and you do bring up a good point, there's like, I think there's two parts to that, right? There's the active, misread of a culture, or, active misread, which could be seen as, all press is good press type things. You say, it could just be, you just don't have anybody telling you that this is a blind spot and you went ahead with it too. But I think the bigger thing is really the inaction that the lack of context leads to. And I think that's the even bigger. It's not that like when they do something and it's wrong, it's like when they don't even know that there's an opportunity to do something, and then it just goes by the wayside. And so I think that it's those two things, and trust me, I've seen it firsthand with that lack of context. Like, you'd be surprised at who's running some of these ethnic hair care categories. You know what I'm saying? You would be surprised. You know what I'm saying? You would be surprised. So
at this point in time in the world, I don't get surprised. Like, I'm not the person, and I stand by people disagreeing with people that are like, I can't believe that happened in 2020. You were saying that in 2010. You said that in 2000. I can't believe it's happening in the year of word. What did you do differently? that 10 years actually mattered. The 20 years actually mattered. You did nothing and just hope that the years were going to change. Then you're the same person that thinks that you got to wait till New Year's in order to have a resolution, opposed to starting today as your new year, regardless of the date on the calendar. Because the date on the calendar ain't got nothing to do with nothing other than your actions. So moving along to your actual day-to-day, what does a day in the life of your job look like?
I think it's making sure that the teams are aligned, making sure that the teams have direction and vision. I think it's providing context. A lot of days around best practices, how to organize the work, how to break apart the work, how to distribute the work. That's a lot of kind of what I'm doing. There's a lot of communicating up to VPs, SVPs, and then there's communicating down to team leads and other folks. There is a lot of coaching and mentoring, a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of, kind of HRE type stuff like that, where you got to give that coaching and give the feedback and different things like that. I think it's also, being involved in, I'm on a cultural council at work, right? And so I'm actually like the de facto lead of that. So sometimes doing stuff like that. It just really depends on what's going on that day, right? Because I said we manage these data pipelines. So if the data pipelines are going pretty good, it may be a pretty chill day where you can kind of look out into the future and give some more parameters to, get out in front of the work as much as possible. Other days, it may be a tactical hand-to-hand kind of, doing firefighting, and then not only doing the firefighting of whatever issue of the day there is, but, one, kind of tactically solving it on that day, but then two, fast follow at the same time sometimes, thinking about how we can improve the process for the future. So there's definitely a lot of that. I go from talking to product managers and commercial salespeople and user experience folks to talking to application UI, user interface developers, to talking to my team of data engineers and modelers, to talking to different technical admins that that are basically like the administrators of some of the infrastructure that we work on, different databases or different computers or servers. So I talk to everybody. I'm kind of in a position where I have to tailor my communication to who I'm talking to, right? So if I'm talking to the deep technical person, another technical director, then, we can go there. I can go jargon for jargon with you. I don't do that on a natural basis, but I can understand and I can do that. But then I can also go and talk about, design patterns and different things like that. But then I can also switch it and talk more strategically around, our working model and our ways of working and how to integrate different teams and how to scale different things. So my role used to be more hands-on with actually coding and doing more things. I've got a history in that of doing actual hand to keyboard coding. I don't do as much of that anymore, but I am directing the vision and the strategy and providing the guardrails to let the team leads kind of do their thing, because we want them to grow as well, while I'm kind of tackling the big, hairy problem. What I realize is that technology usually isn't the hard part. You figure the technology out. That'll come. It's the people that, even in a technical role, it's the people and maneuvering things to happen. That is where the rubber hits the road, and that's where a lot of my focus is connecting people to processes to but having the context to be able to have the context and the experience to get those recommendations and have those talks.
So I know technically your title is data engineering, I'm only bringing up the engineering and stopping at the engineering instead of adding at the director part. But I'm only bringing that up because of the fact that as we talk about engineering and engineers, there's a stereotype when it comes to engineers when it comes and related to their social skills and their interactions that may come along with that. Does that show up in your industry, or this more of like the technical type of like hands-on, I'm building, say a rocket or whatnot engineer?
So they call me, so I know real engineers. A lot of people from my chapter at University of Alabama are real, like mechanical engineering, physics, thermodynamics, like real. It's almost, this is the good analogy, right? When people call other people doctors, right? So,
don't do it, man. Don't do it. Don't make that dentist, man, because you know that this is a doctor too.
I know that this touches a sore spot. I know a lot of PhDs. I know plenty of PhDs, right? And I know plenty of actual medical doctors. I know more PhDs than I do medical doctors, but they're both doctors, right? So I'm an engineer, they're engineers, but it's like I consider like the real like electrical engineers, mechanical engineering, thermodynamics, civil engineering. Those are like the medical doctors of the engineering world. Whereas software engineering and other types of engineering it's still engineering, because it's how do you build something? How do you bring it to life? But it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit more abstract. So we do have varying levels of social skills for our engineering folks. Most of the directors, though, need to have, because from what I was talking to you about, I didn't bring up that I'm sitting at a keyboard coding all day. You didn't hear that from me. Like, I didn't say that
I was in there. I was going to ask you that. So go ahead. Keep going. I'm
not coding all day, right? And so I can read code, right? I can read code the best of it. I can You give me the law, you give me the code, I figure it out. But I'm not, actually doing a lot of code. I have a history of doing a lot of code because you need to have that context, in order to make decisions, know about design patterns, things like that. But the job of a director is to direct, manage, and coach all in one. So that takes a lot of soft skills, right? And a lot of times your main job may be information conduit, right? You're taking somebody, your CEO or your VP's vision strategy, you're crafting it into actionable things, and then you're communicating that down to more technical people. So I think communication is a huge part of what I do. And actually, I think it's a competitive advantage for myself. People have called me the translator, and needed me in the room to translate between the commercial person and then the developer or the admin to turn, hey, I kind of want a card. So for example, right? If you're going out to look for, you know what the good example is? When you're building a house or building something, right? You have a general contractor, right? The general contractor is the one who talks to the clients, right? What type of floorboard you want, what type of, style of house do you want, right? Then they turn around and translate that to the subcontractor. Hey, they're looking for this, this, and this. That means we need measurements for this, this, and this. Oh, it's this type of thing that they want. That means we need to do it in this type of order. And then they subcontract it out. But that general contractor is a conduit of information back and forth. Sometimes they may need to, the subcontractors get out there and like, we found out this is a load-bearing wall, so it's going to take a lot more money. They have to turn around and get that information back up to the clients, and then the clients give that, so it's definitely a lot of soft skills about anytime you're managing people and have direct reports, you got to have soft skills, emotional intelligence, all that jazz. There is and that was one of the things going back to my times in school, management information system. We were a social bunch, right? And it's funny because we would take classes with the computer science majors, and we would all be in the same class. But it's so funny, like you could tell who was the MIS major and who were the CS majors just by how social everyone was. You know what I'm saying? So there was a natural split. But yeah, I think that old myth of the engineer with the pocket protector and the tape on their glasses, that's gone, right? I think you got to be close to the customer, close to the business. Well, when you get into my industry, that's pretty much gone. I think the main engineer you see now has a man bun and a flannel jacket, you know what I'm saying? And lives in Northside. If you're not from Cincinnati, you know what I mean? If you live in Cincinnati, you know what I mean, right? So that's the new thing of an engineer, not the, high water pants with the khakis and the pocket protector and the, so.
I got you. Okay. So I always my brain races as we just sit here and talk about your industry and all these things. But you mentioned leadership, and I want to just highlight how leaders aren't necessarily born; they can be created, and organizations are intentional about creating leaders often. So for anyone that's out there and thinking, I don't know if I'm ready to lead and not be a manager, but be an actual leader with the title manager. I would like to do that, but I don't think I have the skill set. Can you tell them about how you're most likely, I haven't even talked to you about this, but I'm certain your company over the years have had you participate in different trainings to make sure that skill set is getting developed.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was talking about the Urban Leader Institute, that was on the company. I didn't pay, there's a tuition involved there. I was sponsored. There's also, just different opportunities. Sometimes you just got to make the opportunity yourself, right? I think leadership is looking at a situation, seeing where the gaps are and helping to fill the gaps. That could mean in a couple different ways. If you're at a certain level, you go out and you fill the gap. And I think leadership is one of those things to where experience will help you feel more confident in leadership, because leadership is a lot about judgment and decision making, right? A lot of times the leader isn't the one doing everything, but the leader sets the tone, sets the direction, gives the guidance, right? And so I think as people get more experience, you get more comfortable with the idea of leadership. With me, my journey into kind of leadership and being a director was working on the team, just another part of the team, right? And then I would see, blind spots in our group, and I would just say, "Hey, I'm going to run with this, and I'm going to do this." And I'm blessed to be at a company that allows us the space to be able to grow and do these things. So I grabbed the opportunity myself. I'm a firm believer you ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission sometimes when it comes to opportunities. So I did that, and then they kind of eased me into it where, then I became a team lead a couple years ago, like more formal. I was always like a de facto lead, but I became a more formal team lead a couple years ago, and then started getting into doing some HR management activities. And then I started, representing engineering in different spots where I'm the only engineering person there. And then it just kind of went into me being a manager and officially a director. But I was already doing a lot of the work well before I got the official title. So that's probably my good advice. Just step into what you want to do. If you see there's something that you want to do and you have the space to do it in your wherever you are, your career, early in career, mid career, later career, just step into it and do it, because most times people want to see, it's a chicken or the egg thing when it comes to leadership and people giving leadership titles to people. People want to know that you can be a leader before they give you leadership responsibility and title. But it's like, well, how can I prove out that I'm a good leader if no one ever gives me the leadership title? You just got to go out there and do it. You got to go out there and own things that, show that you're a leader, show that you're able to handle things and control things, synthesize things, take the initiative. One of the things that we see is that, always be thinking about, if you want to do leadership, if you're coming to your leader or whatever with a problem, you should be thinking about the solution behind it, right? And that will get you into the mode of trying to be a leader, because that's what leaders are doing, trying to think about what is going to be the solutions to our problem. So you can do that in your space immediately. And then as people see you doing more stuff, they'll give you more responsibility. Like from one of my favorite movies, Coming to America, this week he's mopping floors, next week it's the fries, and so it's a similar type of thing wherever you go. You got to be able to handle what's on your plate currently, and then people will give you more responsibility. And then at a certain point, you may have to have those hard negotiations and upfront conversations around, I'm doing the work, I need to have, whether that be the pay or the title or the benefits or whatever that come with it. So you got to kind of find that line for yourself as well. But the biggest advice is see where there's a void of leadership, step into it, make yourself invaluable, and go from there.
So you mentioned something in there that I want to also bring to light, because it needs to be clear for people. You mentioned decision making. Being a decision maker sometimes is scary, it's tough. You're like, am I making a decision that's going to impact this company gravely? And if I make the wrong one, what's going to happen to me? And based off of what you said, I just want to bring it, I want to flush it out. You're able to make decisions more precisely. Like, you're able to make those decisions because of the fact that you are competent. Like, you've learned this job, and the competency allows you to gain the confidence in what the decision is going to be, because you already have seen these things, and your organization has the same potential competency level. And when they see that you made that decision based off of the same level of thought that they expect you to have, if it goes wrong, they respect it because they understand it. And if you do something beyond the actual beating path, you can articulate that, I'm assuming, in most cases. And in theory, that's where everyone should be a good salesman. You can sell your perspective. And also, part of being a good leader, as you mentioned, is sometimes asking forgiveness. Because if you don't have a boss like a lot of people prefer that isn't a micromanager, they're expecting you to do that anyways, and apologize later with a clear reasoning behind why you made that decision.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the path to leadership, and it's funny, I've been on like multiple Zoom calls and other, like I'm in a user experience intensive. I've been in other things and all this other stuff. You have to develop these. You're absolutely right. Leaders are created. They're not just naturally born. They are created. And I think I like to use the analogy of, teaching a kid how to ride a bike. You have to let go of them to let them know it so that they can ride the bike, right? But if your kid is learning how to ride a bike, you're not gonna let them swerve out into the interstate or swerve out into a major boulevard. So I think the path to leadership is having controlled spaces where you can work your leadership muscles, and then as you get in more experience and more judgment, you get more responsibility, more risk that comes with that because you got more area scope of what you're doing. But nah, it's definitely something that gets built, and is definitely, good management structure won't allow you to make a mistake that's going to cripple the company unless you just like go super rogue, you know what I'm saying? But a good kind of company is going to give you a safe space to be able to make decisions and fail if you need to, and succeed, where you can. But it's definitely a learned, it's a learned skill, and decision making is tough, right? Everybody wants good leadership. Nobody wants to be the leader, and you understand that probably wholeheartedly. And so that's just a part of the game, right? And so those who, I think a way you can differentiate yourself is if you step out there and be more affirmative about suggestions and different things like that. People see that as a leadership component, and they may want to say, hey, well, he or she has, been given their thoughts and opinions and forceful with it, and they bring in the rationale. Maybe we give them more responsibility. So you got to step out there and do it. Talk with your management structure and make sure you know where the parameters are, but figure out where the out of bounds lines are, and you just play within that space.
Yeah, man. So, all right, let's get straight to it. Give the actual breakdown of your journey into your career and your current position, and also include any potential things that you could have done differently that would have gotten you to this role quicker, if that's possible. So I want that clear path, and I would like for you to. I'm assuming based off of what you told me earlier that this path started when you walked in and discovered this whole industry that day. So let's start there and then work ourselves up here. What was that actual route so somebody can literally do each of those things and end up in your role?
Yeah. I went to the University of Alabama. So, you go to a reputable school. So I think that's a part of it, right? HBCUs are inbounds as well, right? We love our HBCUs. So go to a reputable school. And then, what I did was I said, okay, I saw that, management information system, they're giving out jobs. They had 100% placement. They had all these funny memes before we even knew the term of what a meme was. They would put memes around campus, and, you take the business class. You have to take the a lot of times when you get into a major, you have to take what they call prerequisites to your major classes. So MIS, Management Information System, is a business major. Like I was saying, I got to take economics, accounting, finance, macro and microeconomics, business calculus, other stuff like that you got to do. So you take your prerequisites. Okay, you do that. Then you go into your major classes. And once you get into those major classes, that's where they really start to give you more practical. One, it's like the first class of your major classes, which is like the prerequisite to more advanced classes in your major. So you do that, and they kind of give you a wide breadth of things to do. In my case, that first class was always seen as a weeding out class because it had some technical components to it, and it would weed a lot of people out, like who's serious and who's not serious about it. So usually whatever it is, and there's probably going to be some type of weeding out where it's just going to be tough, right? You're just going to have to get through it and come out on the other side, right? After I did that, and one of my weeding classes was actually learning how to program. I had never done any computer programming until I saw it in college. I wasn't the type sitting at home coding off to the side, or hooking up Raspberry Pis and making my own little homemade clusters and stuff. I wasn't doing any of that. I knew like 4 or 5 different keywords in programming, and that was it. But I made it through those programming classes. I leaned into some of the professors to say, hey, I'm really trying to get this stuff. I haven't been exposed to it, so I'm trying to get to it. It actually helped me out because I actually passed one of my computer science classes by 100th of a point. And I think they probably gave me 100th of a point because I was in that dude's office every couple of days saying, hey, can you explain this to me? I'm just not getting it. And I wasn't getting it because it was a foreign concept. It's so funny looking back at it now. It's like, that seems weird. But to me at the time, it was very new. And so lean in and try to keep your grades up to the most part. Grades aren't the most important thing to the equation, but they can disqualify you from a lot of opportunities. You know, GPA isn't the end all be all. I can say that for a fact. I've been doing collegiate recruiting for 6-7 years. It's not the end all be all, but there is a bar a lot of times, right? So you want to try to keep it above, you know, as much as you can, close to a 3, above a 3, if you can. And that's why it's important when you first get into college, pay attention to those first couple of classes. You understand that you went to UC. If you dig yourself into a GPA hole, you know, it's hard to climb out of it. So those English 101, whatever 101, all those 100 series classes, ace those, be serious about it, get them out of the way. Get yourself on the right path, because you know what's going to happen when you get to the actual classes in your major and other things. Those are going to be hard. And like, even if you are doing a really good job in it, you still may fail, or you still may get a C or whatever. So start off good so that you can weather the storm when you get into more of your major classes. Another thing that I wish I would have done, things that I wish I would have done that I didn't do, I actually didn't have any internships, right? And so that was probably, I think the nature of my program was the internship was kind of embedded into the curriculum, where we actually worked with real companies and did real projects, and the school got real money for us doing those real projects, which seems a lot like the NCAA when you think about it, us getting pimped out and not getting any money from it. But I digress. But so I had that stuff on my resume in terms of working with other companies, real world stuff embedded in. I probably should have, if I would have gotten, you know, a real life internship somewhere, that probably would have helped out a lot. And I know for a fact that's one of the things we look for, is people that have different internships, and companies like ours do internships and co-ops and other things. So try to get some real world experience to marry up with your academic knowledge, right? Because that's where you're really going to learn. Academic stuff is cool, but you're really going to learn when you get out there and you have actual use cases to apply your academic knowledge to. So try to get something like that. I would try to, network as much as you can. And this is what I did. I went to a lot of different networking events. I shook, well, maybe not right now shaking hands in the pandemic, but I shook a lot of hands and I talked to a lot of people. And I never tried to miss any of the networking opportunities. I was always front and center. And to be honest, that's exactly how I got on at what was formerly dunnhumby, now 8451. I actually had an offer for a company in Memphis, Tennessee, called International Paper. I was like a day away from, all right, I guess I'm going to be living in Memphis. I got a cousin in Memphis, and, you know, they got good barbecue in Memphis. I was going to be working in Memphis. But then I did a presentation in Alabama where we had a lot of company execs in the room, and I was one of the main presenters. And, you know, I networked with them. I had already had an offer at that point, so I wasn't really trying to, like, outwardly impress anybody. I was just, you know, no pressure on me. I'm good. You know, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to look you straight in the eye, do all those things. But what turns out, I didn't even apply to dunnhumby. Okay. Somebody at dunnhumby got my resume from one of my professors, and I'm laying in my bed right around this time, which is funny, right around this time in 2010, 10 years ago. And I get a call from the recruiter at dunnhumby, because I was thinking that they only hire people with master's degrees and PhDs, and they're not going to hire me. And they called me, and I had an offer on the table at International Paper, because I was doing all those things we were talking about before, networking, going to different things. And that's how I ended up with that offer at International Paper. But then I got the offer at dunnhumby, or I got the engagement from dunnhumby, starting the phone interview and things like that. And the funny part of this story is I did not actually interview for an engineering position to come to Cincinnati. I interviewed for an analyst position. not an engineering position. So I was going to be, they've gone through a branding change. They call themselves data science researchers, but before they were calling themselves analysts. So I didn't even have a technical interview. I did more of a analysis. You know, if Clorox wants to come out with a new scent, how would you use data in order to pick which scent they should come out with? That was one of my phone interview questions, right? And I had to kind of like on the fly come up with stuff. I did my research and other things like that. When you're interviewing with companies, do your research on the companies, figure out what the business models are, do all that other stuff. So yeah, I got hired on as an analyst.
What's the answer?
Oh, what's the answer? Oh, I think I don't even remember what I said. What did I say? I think I said, you know, maybe you put them all out in a smaller distribution in an area, right? And then or put them out at different times over the course of maybe 6 months, and you put one scent out there, the new scent, and see what people's response to it. You know, see are people buying it, are people buying it again? Do another scent, or maybe you do 2 scents at the same time, and see which one people are responding to more. And then once you have more guidance from the data on, okay, people are not only are they buying this new scent, when they run out of it, they're buying it again and again. Some people may buy it just to try it out and not buy it again. You want people to continue to buy the product. And then once you have a clear kind of winner with that, maybe you do the test again on a broader scale. And then once you do that test, then you distribute it out to the country. So that was some of the questions, you know, that I had. But know the company, try to get as much inside information as you can. In terms of, know everything on the website about them, reach out to people that's there, no shame in that, hey, what's the culture like? What's this like? What that's like? People like to have informed people when they come to the interview. I like, and this is more personally, I like to know that people know about 8451 when you come into the interview. So I did that. And actually what happened was I got my, I got interviewed, and then I got flown up to Cincinnati, which I'd never forget. I'd never been so cold in my life. I didn't know how to tie a scarf. I had the bunny ears on my neck. You know what I'm saying? Like I did not know how to. I know you from Cleveland, so you like.
Well, like you wasn't feeling no cold, bro.
I didn't know. There's no reason to wear a scarf in Alabama. And then it was funny. Everybody used to clown on me about my trench coat that I had in Alabama. Like, oh, you're not gonna wear that trench coat. It's too hot. Yada yada. People clowning me. That trench coat saved my life when I got off of the plane. I felt it when the runway into the airport, I felt it right there. I was like, woof. If you remember, this is December 2010 when it was really, really cold. You remember that? This was like early December 2010, 10 years ago. This was like, it was single digits for the week.
Was this the year we started getting those Arctic temperatures? Because I feel like we got one of those off.
Yes, this is December 2010. This is like that first week of December 2010. So I did that. I went and did my interview. I was pretty relaxed too, because it was like, I already got an offer. I was totally relaxed. Be relaxed at your interviews, right? The interviews are a two-way street. Not only are the company is interviewing you, you're interviewing the company, right? So that level of confidence will help you out in these interviews, right? It's a two-way street. You're courting the company's courting you as well, right? Not just they're trying to pick. You have to accept the offer, not just them giving the offer. So I did that, and then so I ended up accepting the offer 2 days before I graduated from college. So I didn't have a full-time gig until like 2 days before. So don't feel bad if you're in college and you're getting up to the end. Don't feel bad, right? It's not where you start; it's where you finish. Mm-hmm. In the middle of my accepting the offer, because I accepted the offer in December. And in the January, they switched my role around. So I actually moved to the campaign operations team, which is, you talked about coupons. That is exactly what I worked on coming right out of college. Putting together the targeting file, targeting information to give you those relevant coupons, putting together the print, because think about it, we're mailing out 8-9 million coupon booklets that are all different. This is before all the different personalized printing that you see today, which is funny. Dunnhumby and team was the ones that actually helped bring that technology to life. You know how you see your name on the different cans and all that other stuff? I remember working with that company 2012, 2013, And then I went through a rotation program. I think once you get into a company, it's important to try to see different areas of the company. Ask about rotation programs, ask if you can get a diverse set of experiences. I think that's important even when you're co-oping and you're interning. Try to do a couple different things. It makes you more marketable and you see where your niche is. And then I moved into, I would start off in campaign operations, working with comms and media, and I moved over into more of our foundational data insights team that's taking the data from the Kroger card and all that stuff and putting it into what they call a data warehouse for use for multiple different types of people. I ended.
Wait. Because I want people to understand that, especially if people don't know, you most likely had a job posting internally, which is how you were able to make that transition, correct? Or did somebody just
actually it was different. It was different. We were fortunate enough to have like a graduate rotation program. And so, I swapped. The person that was in the core insights area swapped with me. So he taught me about how they do stuff with taking the Kroger transactions and putting them in the data warehouse, feeding other things. And I taught him about what we do with the coupons and all that other stuff. So it's different ways of doing that in the company. Some companies will have graduate rotation programs. That's something to ask about when you're engaging in different companies. Do you have a development rotation type program? I think that's a good thing to do, especially early in your career.
That way you can explore the different opportunities inside of the company so you can make a well informed decision about what you actually want to do for said company.
Yeah, you know who does good? Centos does a good job at that. I don't know if you met people that work at Centos. They do a big rotation.
I haven't heard about the rotation, but I heard that Centos is one of the companies that's considered one of the greatest training grounds for salesmen. Like I heard that Centos is a great place if you want to really learn how to sell. That they do that very well. So let's go back. I don't want to make you lose your place when I asked you about that.
We moved, so I got into that, I, did the rotation, right? So now I'm more in, the foundational, area, right? Because when I was working in the campaigns area, we would get data from this foundational team. So I was actually moving closer to the data. And then I got an opportunity to basically be the point person for this application, this multi-tiered application that was being used at Kroger to help make promotion decisions and merchandise and pricing decisions. And so it was a unique thing at the company. Our company back then was more, we'll do this custom project for you. We'll give you this nice PowerPoint slide, and then we'll give you recommendations at the end. It was like a pure consulting type function. Whereas the product that I was working on was more operational in nature and more like, we would create a forecast of things that would get sent to Kroger, and then Kroger would integrate those forecasts and send back over their plans, and then we would integrate that into the application. So I got kind of a crash course in orchestration, multi-tiered, multi-tech stack type situation. And so that helped me out a lot, and I was able to kind of run with that. And then in the middle of me running with that, dunnhumby USA, which was a joint venture between dunnhumby and Kroger. dunnhumby was a wholly owned entity by Tesco, which is a grocery store in Europe, and they're really an international grocery store. Mm-hmm. And so they went through some hard times back in 2015, 14, 15. And like really hard time, like because people went to jail for lying on financial disclosures and all that stuff. So they were looking to sell stuff to make up for some things. Kroger swooped in, bought the dunnhumby USA portion out, and created 8451. So that happened. And
subsidiary of Kroger? Because I heard you mention it earlier, but the more you talk about it, you sound like you're a subsidiary.
Oh yeah.
Like somewhat even a division.
Yeah. Actually, yes. We have a president. So yeah, we are. That's a good. Yeah, we are a wholly owned subsidiary of Kroger. Yeah, for sure.
Yep, I've actually heard you all. I don't know if I know at least I want to say within 5 years, if you all have had the same president. I remember he spoke at one of the companies that I worked with for several years ago, and whoever that guy was, if this isn't the current president,
Stuart Aiken.
Sounds about right. He did a phenomenal.
Scottish sounding. He sounds Scottish, like Braveheart almost.
He's good at telling stories.
Sounds European. He sounds European.
Now you got me calling on memory from 5 years ago, and if I'm honest with you, I still couldn't remember what I wore 2 days ago. So I
Yeah,
definitely remember that.
that's fair. But so we had a CEO, and actually our CEO, when we moved over into, he was still our CEO for a while. This is kind of recent stuff. He actually became C-level at Kroger itself. So our CEO turned into the chief merchant and marketing officer at Kroger. So that basically means he's the point person for what we're gonna sell at Kroger and how we're gonna sell it. If you think all that goes into that at Kroger. And then so another person that was up under him actually became the president of 8451. So he's like the head of 8451. And so that happened. And I actually ended up getting blessed with a bunch of unique opportunities that really only come around maybe once in a career. So when we became the new company, things just didn't happen like that overnight. We had to really become a new company. That means we had to basically split all of our corporate networks. We had to split all of our products. And I know if you're not kind of in the world, I think a good analogy is we basically had to separate Siamese twins at the head, and become two different companies. And that's something that a lot of people never get to see. So we're like deep into some people have worked 20, 30 years and never seen something like that happen. I saw it within my first, 6 years of my career, right? So I got an opportunity to be involved in that. And then I got an opportunity to be involved in, the company launching its own product as 8451. So you can go Google it. It's called 8451 Stratum. That's the product that I work on. They got YouTube marketing videos, all that jazz, right? And so everything that goes into launching a product, I got a chance to be able to be a part of. That's something some people never get to see a lot of times because they either outsource it to contractors or consultants or your people from Accenture or Deloitte or PwC come in and do it for you and then they leave. So I got an opportunity to do all of that. And then in the midst of that, that's what kind of helped propel me to be a director and to kind of take on more leadership opportunities. I kind of got, there was an opportunity to where sometimes you gotta have the timing too, right? My boss had some issues going on where she was out for a while. So I had to step into her role. And then it's like people saw me doing it. And so, and then it just kind of like, well, he's already doing it. Let's just give him, all the other things that come along with it. And then, here we are along the whole way. I networked the whole time. I never stopped learning, always understand the business model that you work in, even if you're in a technical role, because that's what's going to differentiate you, knowing where the value is headed and knowing where you need to be. And yeah, that's pretty much how I've been operating. And that's, kind of the high level story, but those are the highlights.
Yeah. So give me, I know the questions that some people have. So what's the entry level for a person coming in to your industry and what's the potential height or cap, I should say?
Yeah.
Salary, of course.
I would say I haven't looked at folks' salaries like that. I've been looking at my own salary, right? But I haven't looked at other folks' salary lately. I remember, I can tell you what you say?
I said, what was your first salary then, I guess? What was your entry level?
I was making 2010, fresh with an Bachelor of Science degree in business administration. 55K right off the bat. And then people with masters were making 65K right off the bat. I think that's moved up a little bit. And I think you could probably expect between 60 and 70 right now, I would say. Straight out the bat, so yeah, that's
okay. And that's entry. So what is say maybe I know you're telling you exactly what they make, but what is leadership potential salaries? Like we're talking hundreds of thousands, 200, 300, or are we just still in the hundreds?
Nah. I mean, I would imagine that they making bank. I would imagine that, it's deep into the six figures for some of the VPs.
Put a number on it.
400, 500, 3, 4, 500, maybe, And then when you talk about the C-level people, that may be seven figures, So yeah, it's on up there. It's definitely on up there. I mean, I'm in the six figures, but I'm not like deep into the six figures, but I'm comfortably into the six figures, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not like deep into the six figures. So.
But it's important that people hear that because because perfect example, a position that people often overestimate or just don't pay attention to the opportunity, which is say a manager at Kroger. It's like that person is in charge of millions of dollars worth of products. Like you go in Kroger, you go into Walmart, you go into any of these superstores, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm just getting you like la-di-da. You think about the people picking stuff off the shelves. Look, that person is in charge of making sure that this store that's producing millions of dollars, and I would guess maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, a day, they're in charge of that and operating that. So yes, they're going to be compensated in a type of way. And you all are helping them on a whole different level that's making their lives even easier. Not easy, but easier. So the compensation makes sense because the value you're producing is worth millions. And I said that out loud, and I'm immediately thinking like, that's probably closer to the B. That's probably closer to billions, if anything, because of the fact of how many stores you have across the country, how many times that card is getting swiped. You have millions of different freaking users that's sending their information off to you every time we put our code in there, so you know that we're rewards members, which is really interesting, obviously. So we just mentioned salaries, so people have an understanding of that. I want to be very clear about the actual degrees. What are the degree options that a person can get in order to move into your profession? And you did mention masters, so mention those degrees. I know you can transition into different roles, not necessarily the most traditional way. So can you mention what degree options people can have in order to get?
Yeah, they got new degrees now that they didn't have when I was in school that are specifically tailored to this. So, you got computer science, obviously, that's always management information systems. Those are more your legacy ones, right? And that's, I think I bucket it into different groups, right? If you're looking at kind of more data engineering type role or be something like what I'm doing, computer science, like I said, management information systems, trying to think of some of the other ones that I've seen. General. The thing is, a lot of times, if you got that business acumen mixed with the technical initiative, because sometimes you go out and learn this stuff on your own, that's just as good. It's just about, you can learn a lot of stuff for free, right? So I think it's a little bit less about what major you're in, although having something in business analytics or something in around that, will help. I've seen people with mathematics, regular engineering degrees and other things, something that can prove out that you can take in information, right? You can do something a little bit more technical. You can learn. And yeah, I think, and then we talk about master's and postgraduate degrees. I would say, because it's something, I don't have a postgraduate degree, so it's something I'm looking at as well. I would say, obviously your MBA is a good one, right? To get more business acumen. If you have more of a technical undergraduate degree, having something with business acumen to tie it together is always beneficial. Like an MBA with probably a concentration either in analytics or a concentration in consulting or something like that, some type of concentration with it. I would say for statistics or something like that, so, some type of major in statistics or economics would help out as well from a postgraduate level degree. But we have a good diversity of people with their backgrounds. You know, our president, it was a chemical engineering, you know, or like a biology undergraduate. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's really about how you apply yourself, and I think take advantage of the free stuff that's out there because people are looking for initiative. Sometimes being in the right majors will connect you with the right recruiting people off, you know, from the beginning, and that's helpful because sometimes certain companies may not even recruit other types. It's just maybe you may have a better chance of getting an inside track if you're a certain type of major. So, but yeah, something technically related would help out.
Okay, okay. And wrapping up, I don't want to leave this open because you mentioned it, and I think it's fair to ask. That way, people get the information on how they can position themselves, which is you said that, as I always say, it's easier to get a job when you already have a job. So you actually go into those jobs a little bit more comfortable and confident, and which allows you to think clear. But that ain't the question here. The question is the fact that you mentioned you were recruited because you were discovered. What did you do? That's what I want to know the information to. What did you do to get on the radar of your company? And how does one do that? Because for you to have been discovered, you had to either been in the right place, had your information available, or you did something that, or maybe your company just looks in universities and finds people who have the grades. I don't know. So please elaborate on that.
I mean, first of all, my major in like the department had a very good relationship with these companies. Very good relationship. So that's where it starts, right? They have a very good relationship. They're on a first name basis with these people. You know, they chit chatting when they come down in town. They chit chatting and doing all this other stuff. So very good relationship. So that's the one. I was in the right place at the right time. Like I said, going back to earlier, it's all about opportunity, being in the right place at the right time.
As in Alabama.
At Alabama, you know, at certain schools. So look at the schools that you're going to. Look at, you know, what their different types of things that all plays into it when you decide on where you want to go to school is what type of, you know, things they're good at. And so that was one thing. I think the second thing was to, you know, the confidence thing is always, you know, people respond well to confidence, right? And so I think that my presence in giving the presentation, because at Alabama, we had, it was almost like a science fair type thing with all different teams and all the different company people would walk around and you give your little 5-minute science fair type. This is what we worked. This is the problem. This is what we worked on, yada, yada. But they picked one group out of all the groups to give a more in-depth presentation. And it happened to be my group that did the in-depth presentation. So I had a lot more FaceTime with the folks, you know, that were recruiting. So I would say be knowledgeable, be confident. You know, I think that's the key things. You know, I think I showed a good presence of being able to communicate well, and combined with technical acumen, which is always the sweet spot. You know, and so that's kind of what I did to get noticed. Because like I said, I didn't apply. I got reached out to, and so yeah, just being confident, being you know, just being yourself. You know, you got to understand, you know, and coming straight out of school, you know, although it's a lot more competitive than what it used to be, you don't know anything coming out of school. No matter how smart you think you are, you don't know anything, right? So, and we know that, you know, when we talk to people, right? So just lean into that and say, you know, just lean into what you're good at, you know, and try to be, you know, as knowledgeable and as polished as you can and bring your best self to whatever situation you're in. And that's kind of how I got, you know, put on.
Okay. So, if possible, just briefly, can you name some other companies like your own, so they know the alternatives to just, if it's not a dunnhumby or 8451? I know Nielsen is out there, right? Well, is Nielsen is similar, right?
Yep, we work with Nielsen in some places and we compete against Nielsen in some places. We actually have a bunch of Nielsen alums that I work with. See the wifey in the background. Yeah, it's a family thing. So yeah, Nielsen is a good one. IRI is which is called There's another company that we work with sometimes, and then we compete against other times. It's called IRI Symphony Group. You can look them up. Another one is what's the one that we work with a lot? Numerator is a market research company that I hear a lot about, with different folks. You can always data science and this data pipeline stuff. This is going to be at every company, right? So this is almost like, where do you need? Hey, you see my daughter in the background too. Very, very much a family affair here. Pretty much any company you could think of that's going to use data, you can apply this stuff to. So any of your major retailer companies, any of your consulting companies, any company out there, most companies are moving more towards data and being data is the backbone of what they're doing. So I would say, that could be other retailers, that could be Amazon, that could be Walmart, that could be Target, like we talked about. It could be your traditional consulting companies, your Accenture, PW, PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, Deloitte. That could be, a bunch of different places. Everybody's trying to get into the data game right now. So I think you're not going to be hard pressed to find. That is going to be the job of the 2020s.
Well, man, I definitely appreciate that. I think you gave people a clear direction in how to get to where you are. I know that it wasn't necessarily easy. I know that you did some things, but I also want to highlight something that you said, and some of the key points that I would take away is take initiative. He mentioned how his current position came because he was paying attention to his boss and helping her, and it ended up allowing him to move into that role because she was like, well, he's already doing it, and might as well go ahead and just take on a role, which means that, yeah, do your job. And if there's opportunities to use your skills to elevate yourself or just elevate the company really, then they may actually decide to elevate you because they see your value. And that's a part of that conversation of doing free work. Free work pays off, regardless if people keep telling you know your worth, so don't undersell yourself, which is true. But you also need to understand that that doesn't mean you can't show your value, because some people haven't seen it yet in order for you to receive the value you deserve. So with that, man, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. And as I'm able to do with very few of the people that come on here, I'm going to send you off the proper way that I should, because I can. Go Mob.
Go Mob.